afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Propagandacast with me, your host, Imperial Dane, Master of Propaganda. We're off here to a 1 versus 1 on a Feynman will approach. Also, heads up, it's going to be a somewhat shorter one. Bit of an exception since I've seemed to have caught a cold, which is rather leaving me drained of energy. So, going to be going for a bit of a shorter one here, but hopefully nonetheless exciting and educational. We shall be watching Omgpop here fighting for the Oberkommando West for Deutschland versus Quentin fighting for the Soviet Union. We over here got an engagement, by the way, in the first few moments as both players rushed for the house. In this case, it's a player one up. But Quentin fighting for the 111th Rifle Corps versus Omgpop here for the Speerverbande Heinz. That comes here fighting off versus Sturmpioniere. Both sort of trying to sort of hold the centre, but not really quite there. One unit sort of pulling back, and so on. We've got troops pushing up, and we've got the truck rushing it, breaking down fences left and right. The troops are going to have to fall back a bit. Noting, by the way, we've got an immediate choice here, fortifications from Omgpop, whereas Quentin's got access to shock motor, shock rifle, and guard motor. Securing the fuel point there, whereas G-Pop so far managed to successfully stall Quentin here. Initial advance, basically keeping off the fuel point initially. Got two faults going to hit so far for Omgpop, by the way. Doctrines are large infantry, a bit of MG. We got a Kubelwagen there arriving for Omgpop. The Kubelwagen points have been secured, cutting off the southern amount of resources. Point here, by the way, a bit open there to quick Soviet Russians, everything here, as well as Omgpop is down south. And of course, could use the Kubelwagen to try and guard around here. I imagine that will be what's happening initially, but beyond that, nonetheless, he did leave himself a bit open here by this southern maneuver. So there we go, striking at the fuel point with vicious Soviet glee. Kubelwagen not joining in to do anything in the south instead. Well, in the north instead, heading southward to join up there. But which basically means he's abandoning the fuel point there in an attempt to deny his opponent his fuel point. I don't really think that's how it's supposed to work, to be honest. I mean, the only difference now is his opponent's going to get another fuel point. And he's not going to get one either himself, so in that regard, it's a bit of an odd opening here from Omgpop in terms of territories and whatnot. On the gauge of Volkswagen versus the conscripts quickly moving in. The Piotr there rapidly went down to a few rapid shots from the Kar-98K. But they're secure. We got sandbags up here, basically further fortifying his position there. We got more Volkswagen arriving for Deutschland. 3 Volkswagen, 1 Sturmpanzer unit, 1 Kubelwagen versus 4 with a 5th conscript squad on the way here. So it looks like Quentin's going pretty infantry heavy so far here versus the Reich. Further shots here, the Volkswagen that want to get into cover, otherwise they're definitely going to be in a bad position. Sturmpioniere with his Sturmgewehrs joining in, running away at the conscripts, sending them running like the Russian dogs they are. Not great for Quentin though, just conscripts getting a good shots there. Still, basically now Quentin in a position making a nice opponent fuel at the same time get some fuel. So in that regard we note here that Omgpop is actually rather behind in the game, whereas Quentin's got quite a bit of fuel there going into his covers. Of course, Omgpop is doing to sort of get things back. Nothing happening with the truck so far. Once we're falling back, this Volkswagen squad was going to have to take a detour to ensure it does not get caught there and retreat. That's that could always result in a full wipe. Jürgen went down. No, he's actually going to have Bass over there. Looks like he finally was able to secure the point there. Truck's doing something. Got MG-34 there ramming for Omgpop, adding some heavy machine gun firepower there to his forces, but ultimately he is forced away here. The Russian pressure simply too much. There we go. Not really good position there for the conscripts out the building. Not sure why Quentin could persist in dealing with them there, but oh well. Only makes it easier for Omgpop to deal with this otherwise larger conscript squad with his depleted forces. battle group headquarters there. Not a huge surprise. Not a huge surprise. Troops reinforcing. The MG34 setting up to cover the cut-off here, though by now there's a bit of a wasted effort overall here from Omgpop. And overall has given Quentin a large fuel lead, which is generally, I mean, what you want to minimize as much as possible as the Oberkommando West. Instead, though, what Omgpop is trying to do is quite the opposite, which is generally not good. Question is, of course, what will Quentin do with this fuel lead? What will he translate it into? We got field infantry there, but we know he's got a 6th conscript force. He's up to 6 conscripts versus the much smaller force. So we got mines going down. That is good. That is good. Unless, of course, the Germans are running into it, in which case it's pretty bad. Looks like he's now pressuring in towards the centre there. The MD-34 supporting things. Kugelwagen is heading northwards. Deal with whatever's hiding there. With another smaller force heading southwards. Into plenty of conscripts here from Quentin and from the Soviet Union. Conscripts there getting suppressed, caught here by several machine gun bursts. The result, a pretty hasty retreat. Building here going to hold up. Omgpop advancing too far centrewards. Finally going to get the fuel pump, but again, notable fuel advantage there. Oh, he did cut it down a bit there by getting a Molotov package, the Fungibles of Fiery Doom. And there we go, one Molotov going out the Volkswagen is quickly engulfing Gunther in flames, giving him a foretaste of hell. Another assault here. Omgpop slightly extended his northern front. He's going to have to shift something up to deal with that, leaving the MD-34 there. Overall, due to all the infantry squads here from Quentin, so far rather dominating field. We're seeing here that Omgpop's reacting by getting more infantry to handle this. He could have gotten more MD-34s. I suppose he could have tried for some heavy fortifications. There's maybe some flank emplacements in the right place. Could maybe have done something. It's a bit harder for Quentin to do about all of his conscripts. So that's merely a small suggestion. Troops there run off. The MD-34 here doing, well, not an awful lot, waiting for the enemy to arrive, basically. Got some conscripts quickly flanking up there from the other side. Quickly launching an assault in there while the Volkswagen looks like a bit more formed up. Moving in to save the day, or at least attempt to save the day here for Omgpop. Of course, I have to see how successful they've got more Molotovs off there. Making it much harder here for, well, Omgpop to basically stand around and defend. We got, looks like the battle group headquarters. This will be, we're seeing a Schwer Panzer quarter to guard the fuel point. Not uncommon to see some players do that. In fact, it's a pretty common Oberkommando West move to set up there. At the same time, it is maybe just a bit exposed. Kugelwagen, 3 kills. Almost veterans 1, but not quite yet. Not quite yet. And there we go. And just as it happens, the Schwer Panzer caught it up, but at the same time, it's exposed, attacked from all sides. Omgpop will need to cancel this. There we go. He gained some of the fuel. You don't get all of it back, but you get some of it back. In this case, about 2/3, well, 3/4 it seems. Still, he ended up losing it. He has suffered a setback there, just partly due to time, but also the fuel. That's certainly a lot more expensive for the Oberkommando West to have to deal with. And looks like here now that Quentin's going to check that fuel advantage, which translates into a quick armor rush. Unit wiped up by mine somewhere. Looks like a false spot there. Dead. Tot. Kaputt. Enemy flanking us. More Molotovs here, definitely giving Quentin here an edge up in any infantry engagement so far. Omgpop, on the other hand, seemingly did nothing with this munitions. I don't think I've seen any grenades or mines or anything similar to that. Scooping Needle moving forwards, pushing back the conscripts. Going for the fuel here again, but overall the fuel situation for Omgpop is pretty bad. I mean, he's, in terms of strategy, he's a bit all over the place. And the question is what he's really intending to do, because again, he's not really trying to focus on even one of the fuel points. He's just sort of trying to strike here where he sort of thinks Quentin is easy to deal with. But the problem is, with Quentin's so many infantry squads, it's very difficult to pull off that kind of strategy. In that case, he needs to choose something a bit more focused, a bit more defensive. I mean, a part of me would, consider some flank emplacements in the right place. It would make it much harder for Quentin's large infantry force to deal with. Of course, you'd make vulnerable to armor, but otherwise, the problem is, he's going to be vulnerable to armor no matter what if you can't get the fuel up and secured. So in that regard, he needs to consider something else. You got a lightest infantry that shoots out here, the light infantry gun. Part of any German infantry battalion. Though as the war progressed, they were to a certain extent replaced by heavy mortars. They were easier to produce and certainly also had a bit more firepower, though the lightest infantry, which was notably still more accurate. The Germans actually ended up making different variants of this to sort of combat this, I believe. So another series of small fun facts there. The heavy fire going down in the building, striking the roof, and hopefully at least beat the Russians inside. T-34 there on the way. Academy of her rubbing looks like Omgpop is realising something needs to be done. He's also getting some Panzerschrecks. They're being secured. Combat engineers are being shredded by the MG-34. Some rather punishing damage they inflicted. Second Panzerschreck on the way. T-34-76 halfway there. Halfway. Nice flank here from Quentin, by the way, launching a large enemy force, catching Omgpop's defences here a bit off guard. I imagine he's going to do something here, but rather fires a bit too far. Now we're seeing same thing being contracted as the assault continues in, and now we've got a T-34-76 joining in that regard. Omgpop will be in a rather unfortunate position to really try and deal with this. As he actually moves ahead, the Kubang, I'm not entirely sure why, but it only makes it easier for the T-34 to maybe get off a shot there, and Kubang kaput, a wreck, a trophy for the Russians. So rather unfortunate situation here for Omgpop. There's a tank loosens lines, he's got a few Panzerschrecks, he's about to lose one here. I think he might have been a bit too confident there. Again, we're moving up southwards here. Need to set up. Scheiße! The Sturmpionier might be lost here, and there we go. Tot! Not really having much luck here as Quentin goes in unrelentingly. It is time here for the mid-game analysis. Current situation. Omgpop is very much in a bad position here. His strategy so far having led him to be rather extended without any sort of secure fuel source, overall giving Quentin a notable advantage in terms of fuel and tech compared to himself, who's at, well, not so much there. He's got an infantry gun, but overall they are a bit problematic here, as artillery in particular, considering their price, they don't really quite live up to it at the moment, one might feel. But always his main problem is what to do about it. One solution would be get some more academy efforts out. Another one would be get a pack for the field that will at least create a bit of a harder zone there to move around in. The problem that would be all the infantry. I mean, basically Quentin could actually easily swarm it. So in that regard, he's going to need then more MG-34s at least sort of that way try and cover it. Which of course is going to be a bit tricky then for Omgpop to sort of deal with. More academy efforts of course would also risk at that, but at least they'd be a bit more mobile and have a chance of escaping the hordes of Quentin. Another idea could be going for a mechanized regiment, getting out a Puma, and that would help a bit with the T-34-76 being mobile, and then maybe he would get out a flak half-track to sort of support things, try and deal with all the infantry. And certainly one might suspect a mechanized regiment with an early flak half-track might have been a better choice here versus the initial infantry force. Then again, they could have swarmed it, so that would of course been a bit tricky as well, though again with some infantry force to cover the flanks, it might have worked out. beyond that, there's not really options. I mean, he could try for Schwer Panzer Quarters, but that will further delay any sort of more serious response here to the T-3476, and would thus not really be advisable, to be honest. So I really feel like a mechanized regiment is probably his best choice. If he's feeling utterly desperate, I suppose, in a mad moment, he could try and aim for a Jagdpanzer IV, but the problem is still the T-3476 with some conscript support could probably deal with that pretty easily, and even then there'd still be all the conscripts, which the Jagdpanzer IV will be very, very ill prepared to handle. Otherwise, I mean, you know, for Quentin, he's got plenty of infantry, he's got some T-3476, he might want to consider up some fuel catches to sort of further support any sort of move, and I suppose he could try and save up in the long run for an ISU, which would then further cement the unpleasantries versus Omgpop, so that might be an idea there to consider. But let's head back to the fight here, and of course overall I think Omgpop basically needs to decide where does he want to be on the map. There we go. Did get off a bit of damage to the T-476, but not before it got off some nice kills there. There's his Omgpop and his Soldaten. Infanterie shoots almost efficiency 1. Almost. Efficiency 2 MG34 here set up behind the fence, ready to cut down any Russian advance. And not before the gunner is apparently cut down himself. More Molotovs. Infanterie is reaching efficiency 1.
Grenadier, ready for action.
More shooting. Punch effect. And we got mines going down here from Quentin. That's going to slow down any advance here from Omgpop further. Quentin is keeping up the pressure, moving in here and there. Omgpop now shifting his axis advantage towards north, trying to gain the fuel there. That might work out. They're still going to have to defend it. Still going to have to defend it. That's really been the problem is. We got another truck there. Question is, what will Omgpop do with it? What will he do with it? Another attempt here to Schwer Panzer Quarters by looks of it from Omgpop. I can't help but feel that's a bit, well, not what I would go for at this stage of the fight. I mean, the option was obviously would be a Panther, but that's rather going to be some time off here. Oh, T-3476 might get knocked out here. No. Got a bit lucky there. I mean, if you were to go for looks, that would be a bit problematic since there's still a T-3476 on the field. I mean, with all the conscripts out, of course, it looks would do well, but then again, Obersam would also do well and save him fuel. And I rather think Omgpop's priority should be getting a Panther. Further shooting here from the shoots. We got another flank here from Quentin, quickly assaulting Omgpop's into both sides. But there you go. Schwer Panzer Quarter and 37 with a flank to the rescue. And the MG34 joins in the fun as well. Ooh, looks like we got a wipe there. Nice shooting for once. Halfway to Veterans 2 now. And we're getting orbital down there for Omgpop to deal with the infantry. That might certainly still play for the Panther. Then again, Pack 43 would at this stage also be a nice idea. Maybe somewhere around within the range of the Schwer Panzer Quarters, for example, right around here, would allow him to cover both victory points, one fuel point, and some other bits as well. I think that could actually work out reasonably nicely then for Omgpop's where to go for a Pack 43 there. So far, it's actually made pretty much zero use of his doctrine except for a single MG34, which does beg the question, why did he go for that then? I mean, he might as well then, I don't know, gone for a Luftwaffe ground forces. He could also get an MG34s there, but also infantry. I mean, some early Fallschirmjägers might have done quite a bit of good there versus the conscripts. as a small thought. And now he's going for looks, further moving away fuel and further denying him any chance of more seriously dealing with the T-34. Or for that matter, an ISU 152, which is going to seem very likely to hit him. T-34 still almost dead, veterans you free. Got a mortar as well here to try and bombard Omgpop's positions. Looks so far not doing anything, surprisingly. Oh, there we go, finally getting off shots. He immediately went down. There we go, veteran 2. On the lightest infantry shots. Got the Luxia trying to deal with the mortar. We got the T-34 moving in. Shots fired and missed. Good thought. And now, oh, looks like he actually cancelled those first orbs, and now he's getting them nonetheless. There you go, another good strike there from the lightest infantry. It's actually 19 kills all of a sudden. Bit of a sudden change there. T-34 moving in again. We got the Luxia blasting away, but not really making much of an impression there upon the armour. Assault went through there. We got some punches trying to hold back the Volksgrenadiers. They're not going to last long with that many Volksgrenadiers with pancakes and notable victories against them. One Volks scored in. Oh! Got wiped out by Molotov. Too much there for Omgpop to manage, it would seem. Oops. Not getting too much done there. Going to attempt to hit the fuel point, though. Ends up in misery and terror as high explosive rounds go off against. We got the lightest infantry, the ships joining in as well. Quentin is being pushed back a bit, but soon he will be able to push back much, much harder.
Taking effective fire! Oh, grenade! Relay orders! Send orders! Grenadiers ready!
So how will Omgpop try to more seriously turn this around? Countries they're getting pummeled. And there we go, mine hit. Rather than fortunate development there for the light reconnaissance tank. Got the T-34 they're barreling in the straight to the several Panzer Shakes. While the orbits are done, advance slowly but surely. ISU 152 almost done. Mine engagement up north. Focus there versus the conscripts. And there you go, another Molotov. Another mine engagement there, one for Quentin. We got veterans running in for the mortar. No attempt in going for the fuel point there, denying it to Quentin. At this stage, it might not matter much, since in about a moment, the ISU 1 heavy assault gun will be out. Schwero boy. Pancakes there connecting with the T-34-76, and there we go, the ISU 152 is arriving. We could upgrade it with the Duska to further add some potency to it. I imagine we'll be switching over to high explosives since there's very little armoured targets on the field, and certainly the high explosive rounds would be much better suited due to the large amount of infantry and support weapons here from Omgpop. And there we go. Also, fun fact, but at a certain point when it comes to sort of guns, when it basically becomes impractical to have the shells in one piece, so usually then becomes sort of the main load and then the propellant. And that was, for example, the case of the ISU 152, which did mean that it had a slower rate of fire due to loading taking much longer. Same thing happened with the ISU 152 actually, or the IS-2. Repeating the ISU 152, that's bloody grand. Note the IS-2 also had that slight technical issue. There we go, high explosive shell flies, though this not actually hit anything. Also, we got no attempt at Dushka. If you get focused on kind of the hitting. Looks like he might try and hunt it down. Actually, considering the way that Quentin is handling his ISU-132, it might actually work. There you go, opening up down the sphere punch. Of course, he's going to need to flank that rapidly. To deal with it in the while he's trying to get the TV positions as well. He's allowing it to knock out his sphere punch. Of course, they're going fat wiped out here with a combined precision bombing strike. ISU-132 shooting. T-34-6 they're rushing away. Now going in there after the ISU. We've been a bit fast. He might have got more damage over here. It's quickly escaping. Well, as quickly as such a massive hulking beast of steel can escape. Now we got a mechanized regiment up for Omgpop as well. And with an ISU-132 out, a Puma would be a good move, but also with the T-34-6 would allow a bit more of a mobile element, and also something to flank the ISU with. So far, this does not seem to be within Omgpop's plans. Victory point-wise, by the way, he's also trailing in notably behind you, Quentin. Also looks like something to drop there. A puncher shake.
Objective secured. Find cover.
More shots fired.
Make ready to move.
Looks slowly being repaired here again. Close to victory too, though. Trying to bombard the crew repairing it. They're not having much luck in actually hitting anything. There you go, Veteran 3 and MD4. Actually, almost Veteran 4. That's not too bad. In fact, there we go, Veteran 4. The orbital down though need to escape. They do not have the ability to go much longer than that at the moment.
Standing by.
There you go, can't go straight into the looks. His 2cm auto cannon. There we go, damaging. We've got the ISU rolling forward as well there again, focus sight. And sadly, Omgpop doesn't have anything to sort of quickly flank and punish it with again. He's got no Pumas, for example. He can't get a Panther, so the question is what he's aiming for. I mean, the Yak Panther he doesn't even bother with, which is sensible. So I suppose it might be he's actually playing for the King Tiger. With the amount of victory points he has at the moment and the overall situation, King Tiger's going to be too far away. I mean, a pair of Pumas would probably be better suited for him at the moment. And he actually has the resources for that. He's got the fuel and the manpower. The pair of Pumas flanking the ISU could deal with it. They could certainly also deal with the T-34-6 most likely. Bit of punch striking going on there with the T-34-6, which is getting very close. That's eventually too high rate of fire. Looks team with infantry up north. The Kednef has been sadly dealt with.
Aircraft is in action. Standing by for setting of command post.
There we go. Looks in trouble with the veteran of the T-34-6. We've got Fulters there trying to move in, but they're already being forced to retreat. Halfway to Veteran 3, but it will never get to Veteran 3 since Quentin put it out of its misery. And a Fulter squad there wiped out. At this stage, it's rather looking like GG here for Omgpop. And there we go. Looks like he just quit. But game over there for Omgpop. A victory for Quentin. A victory for the Soviet Union overall. I feel like this was in part a bit, confused strategy in terms of territory. I mean, he seemed to sort of rush back and forth, but overall really did not seem to have sort of places sort of wanted to fight from, which overall gave Quentin with all of his infantry a bit of an advantage, I feel. Secondly, again, the spare punch at quarters, but he rather insisted on getting a looks, but at that point, the looks really, I felt like, didn't have much chance to really get any sort of good pressure in on the battlefield. So that was, I think, sort of a minor mistake there. And he rather should have been aiming for something that could have dealt with it. I think, again, he should have gone for a mechanized regiment very quickly around the battle group headquarters, a flak half-deck, then a Puma, made more Pumas, then he could aim for a spare punch headquarters and something from that. But instead, he ended up in a situation where Quentin overall had dominance on the field, could more easily outmaneuver him with the T-34-76, which ended up doing a bit of damage there. And then, of course, finally got the ISU-152, which really put some serious pressure on. And Omgpop really didn't have anything to deal with it. I mean, another issue is that basically he only used a single MD-34. I mean, it was not really what described as very good usage of his doctrine at all, though. I mean, comparatively, Quentin made use of all the later abilities, though he knows shock tubes, surprisingly enough. I mean, he could have used, I think, some flak emplacements here and there in the right position to basically sort of stall up some of all the infantry. Bunkers could also have been useful, the mines as well. The Pack 43 would also, I think, definitely got him in advance with his T-34-76, but again, none of it really came about either, so there were really some problems, I think, in Omgpop's play here versus Quentin. But there you go. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Again, my apologies for this bit slightly shorter match, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. I hope it gave you some ideas for your own matches. If you did, why not subscribe, tell your friends, share it with everyone. If not, send in a replay and provide some feedback in the comment section. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers, and thank you all for watching. Bye!